What's up YouTube, Dal here from Zephyr Games, bringing you my dinosaur profile that I took to the UK extravaganza. So this was basically the online remote duel event that was held for the UK, and I'm pretty sure there was one for Germany, and I think there's one for America as well. And I decided to go with dinos. Now, before we get started, setting up remote duels at the start, I was a bit like meh, not really a fan of remote duels, but considering it was the last event of the year, I thought I'd give it a go. So a shout out to this. So I got this webcam, it's called Lamtech, got it off of Amazon for like 22 quid, and I'll put up some of the duels that I recorded. The quality was really good, and it was such a wide lens, it actually gave you enough space to play around with. Anyway, so I decided to go with dinos. The reason I went with dinos is it's a deck that competitively I know well. And when I was looking at, like, so the downline was between this and Dark Magician. But the Dark Magician, I was going to play the Numeron engine. And through testing, I was getting a lot of bricks with dinos. I was getting less bricks with the Dark Magicians. But ultimately, I came down to the realisation that it's like, if I wanted to stand a chance, I had to play dinos, or I had to play something competitive. I didn't want to play Drytron with Vanity's Theme Pass. I didn't want to play Virtual Worlds with VFD Pass. I wanted to actually be a bit more interactive, and I kind of felt that dinos had the power play of going first and second. Now, out of 83 people, I ended up finishing 21st. And the big difference is, like, one win would have changed my position by like 10 places, if not a little bit more. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the profile, take you through the main deck, the extra deck, and the side deck. I'm going to make it quick. I'll explain why I chose certain things and what I would change, and kind of go from there. Now, my matchups were 2 Drytrons, which I won, Pendulum Magicians, which I won, and Mathmex, again, really surprisingly, and I won that one as well. My losses came to 2 Virtual Worlds. One was a brick, one was slow play, and the last one was Zoo Eldritch. And Zoo Eldritch was just, I can see why it's such a good deck. It manages its resources, it burns through quite quickly, and kind of go from there. So, with that out of the way, let me burn through the profile, show you exactly what we've got, because I mean, you've probably seen Dino cookie cutter profiles 101 times over, but I mean, double UCT, straightforward and simple on that one. Triple Oviraptor, again, straightforward on that one. Triple Misk, double Arxor. This is the one thing that I massively hate about dinos, is the fact that you have to play 2 Arxor and you have to play 2 Pill, because if you open up one, you need the other one to summon. And like, quite honestly, I might actually consider, now I need to do a little bit more research into it, but I might actually consider just dropping one for a Dracaelio, but they're just as bad as each other. For the baby lineup, 2 babies and 1 petite. This worked absolutely fine for me. The one prank, I actually found myself siding it out, and I'll show you, this was like one of my first cards I would side out, and I'll show you what I had in my side deck to merit that. The one Giant Rex, of course, all straightforward. Then for the hand traps, triple Ash Blossom, just because it is probably the most broadest one. Like, Ash actually works on quite a lot of cards that a lot of people might not even expect. So, like, if you hit their Lulu, so Virtual World Lulu, of course, it stays in the hand, it can't activate again, very important. But Ash just covers the most, in my opinion. Triple Gamma, I absolutely hated this card with the one driver. Absolutely hated it, because you'll either open up both, or you'd make plays without it. But Gamma put in so much work today, like, I've got no issues with it now. Especially in a deck like this, the idea is that you want to play like your Extravagance, you want to play your Fossil Dig, you want to play a lot that if your opponent tries to Ash you or stop you on those ones, because they know the second you get to your Oviraptor, you're probably going to be able to protect that with Miscellaneous, they're going to try and Gamma you. And then the other thing as well is when you're going offensively as well, you can hit them with a Gamma during your opponent's turn. And if these end up getting sent to the grave, you've got a non-dino in the grave. And then the other card that I main decked was 2 DD Crow. Now, it really came down to main decking DD Crow or main decking Cosmic Cyclone. Now, I decided to main deck the Crow over the Cyclone purely because of the way things would go in. Crow was more of a generic, it would hit everything. So it would hit Drytrons, it would hit Zoos, it would hit Eldritch, it would hit the Virtual Worlds, everything like that. So double Crow worked really well. A lot of people were playing like Skullmeister, and that was interesting as well. But any kind of thing like this, so the ruling that they did at this particular event was the new ruling where if a card is sent to the graveyard and it activates on a separate chain, if you were to Crow it and remove it before that chain resolves, it doesn't resolve. So you hit a Ben 10 that's been tributed, it won't get its effect. So that's why I mained it the double Crow. Triple Extrav, you know, best card in this deck. And the other change that I made in this deck is I main deck Triple Droplet. Purely because one of my biggest fears was that I was going to get locked under Zeus's, or I was going to get locked under Vanity's Fiends, or I was going to get locked under VFDs. So I wanted to go the route of, I don't mind my opponent just playing their board, build up their strongest board, because I'd rather try and break it than drop a hand trap and they still play through it. Drop a hand trap, they still play through it. So I main decked the droplets over anything else. It worked really well, but then there were some times where it was really dead. And the reason it works well in Dinos is because you can pretty much combo off from like 1 or 2 cards. So it means that if you go second, you've got 4 cards to play with. If you go first, you can set this. And if they find a way to turn off your board, you still have a way to negate their board. So yeah, that's why I went with the droplets. True Lost World, very important against Virtual World, because obviously if you give them a token, unless they get to the trap or the spell, and if you back this up with a Cosmic Cyclone and get rid of that trap and spell, they then can't trigger all their effects. So, Troll Fossil Dig, why is this still at 3? Double Evo Peel, again, I saw, it's really weird, because as much as I hate it at 2, I actually saw it in my hand. So what it allowed me to do is it allowed me to do the first full combo through Arxor, and then my opponent would try to stop me getting to the peel, but I had already had it. So I would search out the second one to give me a second turn play if I needed it, but then I could also use it as discard fodder, pop fodder, anything I needed, and still have a peel to win me game. So there were times I was like, yeah, absolutely fine, but then there were times I was like, right, I've got no dinos, I've got no grave set up, this is just dead. 1 terraforming, and then triple infinite impermanence again. Probably the best hand trap with Gamma, just because it can't be stopped as easily. And right now, it is pretty much hand trap format if you can. I'll do the side deck first, then I'll do the extra deck. So for the side deck, you've got double Cosmic Cyclone. So your Zoo Eldritch, you've got your Virtual World, incredibly important, very, very powerful going first as well. And then with double triple Tactical Talents, probably could have put this at 3, but pretty much with my side deck, I went with more of a range than like static cards. But now looking back on it, I would probably bump Cosmic Cyclone up to 3, Talents up to 3. I'd probably put Draw and Lockbird up to 3. Lancea, I never even put it in, never even saw it, never even used it. It probably doesn't need to be in here. Like, someone main decked it against me, which is fine. Really hurts dinos, but then like everything else, it doesn't really do a huge amount to. Triple Nibiru, never saw it when I needed it. I wasn't relying on the Nibiru much, because I was like, through testing at the locals, the Virtual World player that I was facing always went into Gossip Shadow, so he was always able to play through Nibiru. So I was kind of like, I didn't want to rely on that too much until my opponent was going to commit to that play. I saw it once, and it obviously won me the game, but I didn't see it enough to merit anything else. Troll Evenly Match, put it in once, never saw it, probably could cut this out completely. And then finally a Mystic Mine, again, I think I saw it once, but never really did enough for me. It's merely because I've got the field spells in there, and it was kind of one of them ones where if my opponent VFDs me, if my opponent has got the Synchro on the board, I can just drop a Mystic Mine on them, and as long as I get rid of the trap, and I have a Cosmic Cyclone or a way of getting rid of the trap during the next turn, it buys me time. Then onto the extra, there's a lot of 2-ofs in here, and there was a couple of times that Extravagance screwed me hard. So there will be some changes I'll be making to this as well if I decide to pick this deck back up. I only really pick up dinos when I'm playing like competitively, like high competitive. So we've got double Linkuriboh. So obviously you turn Arxor into Linkuriboh, and then turn Linkuriboh into Secure Gardener. And then that will then allow you to have a non-dino in the graveyard. The other Limb monsters, we've got the 1 Nightmare Phoenix, the 1 Nightmare Unicorn, and the 1 Psyframe Lord Lambda. This is pretty much another alternative to IP Masquerena, so either or you want, but because you're playing Gamma, this can actually be quite useful for you. And then the final one was Access Code. Again, a couple of 2-ofs, a couple of 1-ofs. It's very rare. The only ones you really want to be going into, because your UCT is your boss monster, is Linkuriboh into Gardener, and then you're pretty much good to go from there. For the XYZs, I pretty much doubled up on everything I could. So we went with double Dolka. Made this once or twice, probably the first one you go into. Double Tornado, if you know you're up against Zoo Eldritch, or if you know you're up against Virtual World, Tornado is the one you go to. Double Lagia, never made it. Was contemplating it once, but then Dolka was just obviously always the better option. And then finally was Abyss Dweller. I made this once. I made it blind going against Drytron, and obviously won me the game, because they do use their graveyard quite a lot, and it shuts off Benton and everything like that. So, I mean, the extra deck is probably the biggest questionable part on this. There's a lot that I would want to change. Part of me doesn't want to play Extravagance, because I actually want to control my extra deck a lot more. But Extravagance is just too good in this deck in general, to be totally honest. And that ultimately is it for the Dino profile. Like I said, I'm just going to blitz through it. There's nothing too special to keep an eye on. It's just understanding why I chose to go for certain plays, why I chose to go for certain cards, and kind of the route that I was taking with this deck. It did well when it worked. So in a couple of my games, my brick hands were like Terraforming, Double Lost World, Droplets, Imperm, and I was like, yeah, that's not a playable hand. Another one was Rex, Lost World, Droplet, 2 Droplets, and a Pill. Again, not playable. And then another one was Imperm, Prankatops. Wasn't even Lost World. It was like Imperm, Prankatops, Baby, UCT, and that's pretty much it. And it was like, yeah, again, not a playable hand. So there was a couple of bricky hands in that. There was a couple of hands that I would have, you know, should I have changed that, I would have done. But ultimately, when it came down between this and Dark Magician, I kind of had to look at it like, okay, Dark Magician is great. I need to get to the Numeron engine. I was getting to the Numeron engine consistently. But then after that point is where it kind of struggles. Looking back on it now, I don't know, because if I was to play up against, if I had the same matchups and went the same route, I don't think the Dark Magician would have had the killer instinct that the Dinos had, because yes, I would have been able to go Numeron and shut my opponent down. But then the next turn you have to make the decision of, do you normal summon Rod, get your searches off, link into Verte and then Dragoon, or do you hold under Zexal for another turn? And obviously by holding under Zexal for another turn, it's on 1,000, so they can just attack it and be dealt with. So there was a lot that I had to consider about with the Dark Magician deck, and it hadn't had as much testing, and I didn't know its power ceiling in comparison to the Dino deck, because I was testing a new build. Like, I looked at the other Dark Magician versions that I had, and I was kind of like, you needed to have something that played during your opponent's turn. So the idea was you'd go one card gives you Zexal, the other 4 cards you're trying to get to either Navigation, you needed Circle, and then back it up with Navigation or Eternal Soul. So then it gave you a shut your opponent off, banish a card. And then the next turn you would go, okay, make Verte, make Dragoon pop any monster they've put on the board, burn them, and then attack him for game with what you have left. And if they do survive, then you hope to keep hold of the Zexal to stop them the next turn. Overall, it was very fun. It was a good kind of experience, and like I said, it was nice to, you know, first remote duel, it was nice to kind of see how it operates, how it works, and it's definitely made me want to do more of them. I wouldn't go all out to do big ones like this again, but maybe just trying to keep the locals moving during this lockdown in the UK would be very, very good. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video, and like I said, this was more for an explanation and experience feedback than it is the actual build itself, because the build for Dinos are very cookie cutter right now, in my opinion. The only thing that changes is what hand traps you main, and whether you main Cosmic Cyclone, whether you main Imperms, Droplets, anything like that. How do you deal with the game? But thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, guys, as absolutely always, stay safe and happy dueling.